I'm going to start with a question. I'm a user researcher. I love asking questions. So I'm going to start with a question. And I'm hoping for the rest of the presentation, you're going to reflect on this. So, how much of your, can I move this slightly? Sorry, I can't see the screen. Okay, fantastic. Sorry. Okay, how much of your discovery time is spent collecting data and how much of it is spent understanding it? I want you to think about it, really reflect how much of it is actually, how are you distributing your time? How much of it is data collection and how much of it is actually understanding? Okay, my name is Prama. I have a very long surname, which is Ayalasomayajula. I'm a staff UX researcher at HubSpot. I've been a growth UX researcher for the last 10 years. I've worked at Meta, Uber, N26. And what a growth UX researcher does is work with growth teams. So I'm solving pesky little problems like conversion, acquisition, product market fit, retention, preventing churn, and really working with PMs, designers, marketers, sales, operations, depending on the organization. So this research role sort of spreads across different functions, and I really love working with different teams and collaborating with them. I'm going to talk about the paradox of modern discovery. Before I talk about the paradox, I want to establish a baseline of what discovery is. Discovery is a process where you're trying to understand who the customer is, what are their pain points, what are they currently using to solve those pain points, and how you could build a solution to address that. So you're trying to do two things. You're trying to provide customer value and also generate revenue for your business. And discovery hopefully helps you do that. The paradox of modern discovery is the fact that all of us across functions are doing some form of discovery, whether it's design, research, product management, marketing. I've heard this from every single function today, and you can see that reflect in job descriptions. You can see almost every job description. Go to LinkedIn, look at a PM role, look at a design role, look at a research role, and you will see some form of talk to your customers, be user centric, work with researchers, do research yourself, some version of that. And interestingly, I've also seen a shift where leadership is encouraging teams to talk to customers. I was recently listening to Lenny's podcast, and there were many CEOs who said, you should spend more time talking to customers. If you're a founder, you should talk to customers. Fantastic. All of us are talking to customers, right? But if discovery is happening so much everywhere, if everyone is talking to customers, why do so many teams still struggle to build products that are actually customer centric? We are doing the job, everyone is doing it clearly, but it's not happening. It's not yielding the results that it should. The reason I think is quite simple. We're equating talking to customers to understanding them. Talking is an action, understanding is a much longer process, and it requires you to do something beyond just talking. And I think this is what I call the discovery illusion. To be fair to all the functions, I do think there is a real effort and intent. Everyone is interviewing customers, they're looking at NPS comments. And I'm not just saying that from the perspective of qualitative interviews. There are surveys that are going on, there are CSAT surveys that are being conducted. So the intent is there, the effort is real, but there is something that's not working out. And I think the problem is rather systemic. I think we are just accumulating fragments of data. We're not actually taking that data and building that into understanding. And that's why the system is breaking. This is what it looks like. We think the world is a messy reality. We do something, we gather some information, and we neatly organize it into circles. And to be very fair, there's no single circle. But our idea is that if we do some amount of research or some amount of discovery, we will land at a clear valuable insight or a quote or some sort of a finding that will tell us everything that we're trying to solve for. But reality is far more complex than what it looks like in these circles. Um, to talk about this in a bit more depth, I think if you can delineate the process of discovery, it falls into 5 steps roughly. I know there might be more steps, but let's, for the sake of the argument, let's say there are 5 steps. The first step is data collection, which, like I said so far, everyone is doing that. The second step is analysis. The goal of analysis is to break that data apart into small portions. Then the third step is synthesis, where the idea is to combine these separate parts that you've broken down into something that makes sense. And then fourth step, what I love calling it as sense making frameworks. An example that I can give for a sense making framework is an opportunity map that we typically sort of build when we are trying to make decisions. What I typically observe across teams is that we do step 1, we do step 4, and we do step 5. Somewhere around the line, step 2 and 3 just does not happen. I think there are different reasons why it doesn't happen. One, it's a very painful process. Two, it requires some understanding of different types of data, how to do analysis, how to do synthesis, and it looks different for qualitative and quantitative data. And three, we think now that AI is here, that we can throw it to AI and AI will do it for you. Let me tell you a secret. AI actually can't do a great job at this. You will have to partner with AI. You will have to tell AI what kind of data you have, and then you have to partner with what kind of analysis that AI needs to do. If you simply throw data at AI, it's just going to come up with something that makes sense to it. So even the uh, most forward-thinking tools today across research and customer insight tooling recommend doing analysis and synthesis along with AI, not leaving data to AI. So AI is not the answer for these two steps. And I think we see these structural gaps in discovery sort of everywhere. I've worked with some of the biggest companies which are very well funded, but this still doesn't happen even in those companies. And the reason being, there are four things that go wrong. One, there's no plan for discovery. The best case scenario is that I've seen a script or a guide that people come up with, but there's no plan. And a script and guide is not a plan. The worst case scenario, I've just seen people get on a call and have a conversation. If you're a good speaker, you can get away with it, maybe. But even then, you're actually just having a conversation. You're not collecting any data. You're not actually doing any discovery. Two, treating all feedback as discovery. Early on in my career, when people asked me to describe my job, I said I talk to customers and I gather feedback. And I think this was the biggest disservice I did to my role. All feedback is not discovery. In fact, if you take feedback away from the context of product management and think of the word feedback, you'll quickly realize that it actually does not mean what we use it as. Feedback is a process where you're trying to say if you're doing something right or wrong. Discovery is not the point of figuring something right or wrong. Discovery is a point to understand who the customer is or what their pain points are. It's not about right or wrong at all. Third, there's no system for standardization. I've been so far talking about a single team, but imagine if every team is doing discovery their own way. What kind of experience are we delivering end to end if the discovery even doesn't look the same between team to team within an organization? And lastly, no time for analysis. I've sort of emphasized this part a bit more, but I think by nature, product teams are designed to move forward quickly, to take action. There is that action bias. And analysis and synthesis as a process requires you to take a step back, slow down, reflect, understand your biases. So they're like opposite forces. And as a result, there's actually no time to do it. So discovery failure is not usually about people or intent. I'll repeat it. I don't think anyone here or anyone in the product organization does not want to do discovery. That's not the problem. The problem really is how we are set up to do discovery. There's a lack of ownership because product owns discovery, research owns discovery, design owns discovery. So really, who is owning discovery? Two, there's reactive research. Often decisions are already made. We often go into product building process. We've decided that this is the direction we are going to go, and we look for validation through discovery. But that's reactive research. We don't start with discovery. Three, time constraints. I've talked about it. And the last one, my favorite, feedback is not insight. Someone telling you the product is good is not an insight. Someone telling you product is bad is not an insight. Insight is where you understand how someone is using a product and in what context and why something is happening. And I don't think feedback equates one on one to an insight. Until these structural barriers are actually addressed, I don't think discovery will actually help us create understanding. It will continue to generate information, lots of information, but not understanding. So I ask all of you again, how much of your discovery time is spent collecting data and how much of it is spent understanding it? Thank you.